Two main ways of thinking about academic research that I think is in popular culture. And I'm going to tell you a third one, an alternative one that I think actually is more representative of what we actually do. Hopefully this will help you out. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Maslach. I'm Associate Professor of Innovation and Strategy, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back. By the way, please do go check out the platform. I would appreciate that. I'm constantly making it better so we can make our life as researchers and potential scholars better. All right, so what are these two main views that people talk about? Or what are the two main views? The first one is that it's part of the scientific mechanism, or it's part of the scientific method. And the conventional scientific method that is taught in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade is that you do reading, you come up with a hypothesis about the world, you collect data on that hypothesis, and then you tell people based on that hypothesis some results, and you disclose that to the world. All right, so that's the first one that I think there's another one is that it's a corpus of knowledge of some degree, right? Like it is a collection, a body of knowledge to some degree that a lot of people have, right? And I think that is a conventional, normal way, sort of positive way to view what is actually going on within the academic game. So a second one is rather negative, I guess, is that we are publishing to obscurity. Somebody had told me this, like I was just finished my PhD, and this person wasn't a good soul. And they were like, you're just going to be publishing into obscurity. Okay, thanks. Thanks for being so nice. So that's where you're just writing things and nobody's paying attention to what you're actually doing. And it doesn't feel good, right? The sort of communication is that we're kind of irrelevant. Nobody cares. Industry has everything that's going on. And then the rest of the world is going on, and then there's like academics that are kind of doing nothing and wasting resources for everybody. So that is one view, and that is really, really negative. I don't like that view as much as I don't like the other view. I don't think the other view, the sort of main view, the positive view that is taught, is correct. And I don't think this negative view is correct as well. So what is the alternative view? What am I actually talking about here? So the alternative view is to view what we're actually doing as a set of norms and infrastructure that allows you to continuously work. And it is figuring out incentives so that you work more and that you have more discovery, more things that are going on, right? So the name of the game, the basic principle of finding something, and there's lots of good research on this, of finding, of being more innovative, being more creative, it's just producing more. There's a lot of randomness that happens in it. In this whole collection of stuff that you're doing, you have to get things that sort of collect that something does hit, right? It's like why I do so much of these YouTube shows is that eventually something does hit. And something does sort of, resonate with the audience, resonates with you. So in general, every once in a while, something does take off. And the only way that you can do that and take advantage of that sort of random things that happen, and often you don't know what it is, right? Like some of the videos, for example, that I've put out, the things I'm like, really? That did something? And then, it did really well. So you can't predict any of that kind of stuff. And this is true of almost any process, creative process, innovative process. And so you need an infrastructure that encourages people to work more and encourages them to produce more. And that's the basic principle. And it's true of the infrastructure across the university. So even if you're in really weird areas, that are completely irrelevant to each other, right? Like painting versus, doing mathematics. You might think that they're completely irrelevant. They have the same infrastructure, and they're incentivizing people to produce more and do more and have a sort of corpus of things that you've actually done so that people can be proud, so the university, so that the scientific community can be proud of what you're actually doing. So it's more of a set of norms and infrastructure that encourages you to work more. Now you might be thinking, what does that feel like, right? Like you might be thinking like, hey, that's not so fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm really honest about that there's tons and tons and tons of moments where it is not so fun, right? And that's the point of it, right? It's an incentive system for you to keep going, even though it doesn't feel good. So I want you to think about what would actually be accomplished without that incentive system and reward system. So if you were to think about an average person, what they would do if they were doing it on the side, or, like let's say they tried to make it their life, it would be really, really hard without that incentive system. It would actually probably be harder to do it because there's not an infrastructure to get you going and sort of love what you're doing. Now, do I think that there's some people do this regardless, right? So you could see I'm doing this regardless, right? I think absolutely there's some people that do this regardless. And so what's the advantage of somebody that's doing this regardless and being associated with a university or a scientific community? Well, in that case, you're getting what is called agglomeration economies. So these are, when you cluster together, when you clump together, you actually get some benefit of clumping together. So I can actually go talk to other people and commiserate and say, I don't feel good about this, and get that off my chest. Or, get a little hint about how to do this a little better. Now, do I think I gain a lot from that? Sometimes. Most of the time, no. But again, it's a sort of problem of you have to have, for every 1,000 things that you run across, only one is actually going to be important to you. The same thing as everything else, right? It's the whole process. So this way of understanding sort of explains this a little bit more, right? It's not about the moment. It's not about a collection of scientific information. It's not about the sort of scientific method of stepping upwards. That does not happen, right? Like most scientists don't really do that. Most researchers don't really do that. There's a loose, very loose, if you're in it, there's a very loose infrastructure like that, but generally not really. And then, it's not really this publishing in obscurity where nobody cares about what you're actually doing. I mean, there's truth to that, but what you're trying to do is publish more, so every once in a while somebody's paying attention to what you're actually doing, right? And the only way that you have that luck of somebody paying attention to what you're doing that actually does matter and changes the world is by doing it repeatedly. And that's where I like the alternative model. I guess it'd be on this side for you. The alternative model is because it provides an infrastructure that allows us to get back up and do it again, and also having a group of fellow commiserators, comrades that are doing something similar that, you might be able to find somebody that you resonate with. Or I'm not saying, so first of all, does the infrastructure work for everybody? No, absolutely not. Is the infrastructure a pain in the ass to deal with a lot of times? Absolutely, right? Do I feel good on a regular basis? No. Do I have a community that I can commiserate with at any time? That's really difficult to say, because some things, yes, many things, no. Do I have, would a buddy, for example, would that be better to hang out with, commiserate with? Yes, but it's challenging to find those buddies, right? And so this is the thing. You've got all these pros and cons. And do I think the alternative of me doing it myself, which is the classic, more artesian-based way of doing things than having an infrastructure, scientific infrastructure, where you're an artist, where you are kind of a scientist kind of moseying around and doing things. That's a pain in the ass too. And that is hard because you don't feel, first of all, part of a community sometimes, which I don't feel many times, right? But I probably would feel less if I was doing it by myself. And then on the other side, you don't often have the infrastructure that's there. Now, do I think that's changing? And it's becoming easier to do this without this infrastructure? Absolutely. Right? I think some people give in, and we could see that across the board with many of the platforms. But, digital platforms, for example, we could see that. Many people doing really cool things that are on YouTube and things like that are unique and different, that don't have that infrastructure. Like Sal Khan, right? Like doing some cool things with Khan Academy. So that's why I want you to think about. It's not necessarily the corpus of knowledge, not necessarily like the scientific method kind of thing, not necessarily you're doing nothing and nobody's paying attention to you. So it's more of an infrastructure, set of norms, a mechanism, set of institutions that allow you to keep working towards something and having some progress or some belief that you're actually progressing towards something. All right, take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. It's raining out, by the way. That's why I'm sitting in my car. I'm in a beautiful spot, but it's just boring. All right, bye.